This is going to sound strange coming from a realtor, but I don't believe there really is a perfect place to live. I love my native Idaho, but it's not perfect. Not by a long shot. There are even those who say Idaho is going downhill and it's going downhill fast. I don't think that's even close to the truth, but let's take a look at some of the things that some people feel are becoming a problem here in Idaho, especially in the Treasure Valley around Boise. You can judge for yourself if these things are going to be a problem for you. I'm Laura Triratnobus with John L. Scott Real Estate Boise, and Idaho is where I was born and raised and where I still live, right here in the Treasure Valley. One situation that I actually do see as problematic is our growing shortage of medical providers. Even as more people move to Idaho, more of our healthcare providers are leaving. As an example, I know of at least 2 small hospitals here in the Treasure Valley that have had to close their obstetrics and gynecology units recently because they can't find staff. You can't have a baby there anymore. Better pay is a big part of the equation, as are questions about certain new laws affecting doctors and nurses in Idaho and how those laws will be enforced. If you work in healthcare, please move to Idaho and bring a couple of your colleagues with you. We really do need you. Another situation that I see in my own work as a realtor is lack of housing, especially on the more affordable end of the spectrum. This is a nationwide problem, of course, but Idaho has been hit especially hard because of the huge numbers of people moving here over the last decade or so, and especially since the pandemic. This problem affects both housing for purchase and housing for rent. Although the rental situation here in the Treasure Valley does seem to be softening a bit, with rents going down a little over the last 6 months. But those rents were fairly high to start with by Idaho standards, and there are still people who are having a hard time finding housing to buy or rent which they can afford. My advice, if you're thinking of a move to Idaho, please, please, please get your housing situation squared away before you make the move. You don't want to end up sleeping in your car, and Idaho does not have nearly as much of a welfare net as some other states do. I should add that we do have an adequate housing supply right now in the $500,000 and up range. But houses priced below that, especially if they're below $400,000, those are being snapped up really fast, even if they do come on the market and there aren't that many of them. Okay, this next one's controversial. There is too much out-of-state money trying to influence Idaho elections. People who don't live here, who have never lived here, who never intend to live here, still think they have the right to pour money into Idaho's elections to get their candidates elected. Personally, I wish they would work on improving their own states and leave Idaho alone. I know that's unpopular. Okay, next. Not a day goes by without someone griping on social media about traffic in the Treasure Valley. These folks aren't newcomers, but rather they are people who have lived in Idaho for decades or who have grown up here, like me. Yes, from their perspective, traffic is much worse. And yes, the local highway authorities are usually 5 years behind population growth, always trying to play catch up with the demand for better, bigger, larger roads. But is traffic really bad in the Boise area? Well, give me a break. The only time I can't get clear across the valley in 20 or 30 minutes is when there's been a big accident on the freeway. That doesn't happen all that often. Traffic in the Treasure Valley is a dream compared to much of the U.S. We should appreciate this blessing because that's exactly what it is. It's a blessing. By the way, if this video is helpful to you, please give it a quick thumbs up, or better yet, subscribe to my channel. I really do appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so you hear a lot of complaining about too much fertile farmland being turned into housing in the Treasure Valley, and yet at the same time, you'll hear people say they don't want to see high-density housing in Idaho, and that means multifamily or smaller homes that are closer together. They only want big lots with single-family homes that take up a lot of land. Well, the truth is you can have one or the other, but you can't have both. If you want to minimize the amount of farmland being developed into housing, you'll have to accept a certain amount of high-density housing. The good news is that Idaho is a big state, and it's still very much focused on agriculture, farming, ranching, and animal husbandry. The Treasure Valley is not all of Idaho. There's still a lot of farmland out there, and I hope it stays that way. If more high-density housing will help us keep more farmland under production, then yes, I am all for it. You just can't have both at the same time. Now, one problem you don't hear much about, which actually does worry me, is the possibility of water shortages in Idaho's future. The Snake River aquifer, which underlies much of the Treasure Valley, has been hit quite hard by development and by overuse. We only have to look south to Salt Lake City, Utah to see what may lie in our future. Have you looked at the Great Salt Lake recently? It's getting drier and drier. I would really prefer to see people in Idaho voluntarily being more careful with their water use, especially irrigation water, rather than having to have government mandates like they have in California to tell us how to conserve water. If we don't want to see ridiculously high water bills in our future here in Idaho, we had better start taking better care of this resource, because it's a wonderful resource, but it's not limitless. So many people complain that the people moving to Idaho from neighboring states don't share our values. According to the folks who are complaining, the newcomers don't appreciate Idaho's beautiful natural resources, their kids are out of control, and they aren't friendly to their neighbors. There may be truth to these complaints, but the newcomers I've worked with personally to buy homes in Idaho have been wonderful, friendly people with great kids. I suspect a few bad apples are giving newcomers a bad name. And last but not least, Idaho is really going to the dogs, but not in the way you're thinking. Idaho has one of the highest rates of dog ownership in the entire nation. Depending on whose data you're looking at, we may have more dogs per capita than any other state. Well, I love a well-behaved dog with a considerate owner, but I'll admit I'm getting tired of having to protect my own dog from unleashed aggressive dogs when we're out on walks. My own neighborhood isn't too bad, but there's no way I would take my dog to a dog park or a regular park. Careless, selfish dog owners are giving the rest of us a bad name. And guess what else? Idaho has coyotes, cougars, bears, even eagles that will happily eat a dog if you let it run off leash. So please, for your dog's sake and the sake of other dog owners, keep your dog leashed, and that way it won't become food for wildlife. Thanks for watching.